Chapter 886, Lantern in Daylight. Jiang Hao returned to the courtyard and sat in his room. The method to reverse the Great Thousand Spirit surprised him. Learning it all at once made him somewhat worried. It could be troublesome to learn things like that. If not used properly, it could work both ways. The Great Thousand God sect might use it to trace him too. Watching Mi Lingyu and Wenju before, he felt like they were being spied on too. If it weren't for the need to find Fenghua, it would be better not to cultivate this technique. Once discovered, it would undoubtedly lead to trouble. Even if the technique was made public, there was no solution to it. The reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit only allowed one to sense if the other was from the Great Thousand God sect. Who would dare to stand against him? Peeking into others' secrets sometimes resulted in self-destruction. He had to be careful. The Great Thousand Divine sect wouldn't kill everyone who knew about it. They would try to find the source. Jiang Hao was a very careful person. He would never be reckless. He liked stability. The longer the time passed, the better. If there were problems, it was better for self-improvement. Sensing the reversal of the Great Spirit, Jiang Hao felt more and more that he should have known about it. But it was still hard to comprehend the whole method. The integration of the Nameless Manual and the Heaven Lock technique might give way to newer ways of perception. He adjusted the skills that he had gained from the Nameless Manual. He lessened the consumption of energy and eliminated the possibility of detection. As long as he wasn't noticed, he could try to find out how many people belonged to the Great Thousand God sect. He needed someone to confirm. Mi Lingyu and Wenju were good candidates to start from. He had to adjust his state and make more progress before heading to the Lawless Tower. The next day, he received a message from Yinsha. She told him that he could cultivate the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit, but he wasn't allowed to leak the information. That was an order from Elder Baiji. They weren't asking him. They were telling him. Jiang Hao obviously had no objections. It seemed like the sect also knew this matter was tricky and didn't want problems with the Great Thousand God sect. Time passed quickly. In nearly 3 months, Jiang Hao had cleared the payment to the task hall and sold many talismans. He had earned a lot of spirit stones. His income was more than his expenses, so he felt a bit hopeful. During that time, he studied the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit. Occasionally, he visited the Lawless Tower. What surprised him was that Wenju was missing. He was rumored to have been taken away from the Lawless Tower. It was unknown whether he was alive or dead. He might have been killed because of the matter with the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit. In the 3 months, Mi Lingyu couldn't perceive him using the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit. A few more days of study should be enough. However, the Lawless Tower's seniors also seemed to have learned their lesson. They treated him differently from before. He didn't ask much, nor did he let them know his progress. After all, not everyone had the Heaven Lock technique and the Nameless Manual. The Hong Meng Heart Sutra also played a significant role. In the courtyard, Jiang Hao woke up from his meditation. The first rays of the sun fell on him. The warmth soothed him. He stared at the sun for a long time and only looked away when it became too bright. Cheng Chou and the spirit beast accompanied her. It was likely she would get into trouble because of the fallen immortal clan. Xiao Li wouldn't be in danger. The problem was Cheng Chou. People who came from the fallen immortal clan were powerful. A middle-stage foundation establishment realm cultivator might end up dead while facing them. With the spirit beast around, it was much safer. "Master, we're leaving," said the beast. Jiang Hao looked down. The lazy beast was awake. Xiao Li was already there to take it along. "Senior brother Jiang, I'll bring you a gift when I come back," Xiao Li said seriously. Jiang Hao smiled. When Cheng Chou arrived, the 3 of them left together. It wouldn't be bad to let them roam around. Jiang Hao headed to the spirit herb garden to keep himself busy. Everything went smoothly, and occasional issues were easily resolved. He then headed to the Lawless Tower and deliberately activated the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit in a corner where Mi Lingyu couldn't see. There was no reaction from her. Jiang Hao practiced it for another month before he went to find Hai Ming. This time, he used Smiling San Sheng's identity. He found Hai Ming and activated the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit. Sure enough, he could see that the other party was a member of the Great Thousand God sect. "Why do you think I came to find you?" Jiang Hao asked with a smile. "Aren't you afraid of being discovered?" Hai Ming asked. Jiang Hao thought for a moment. "I remember sending a message to your true self. I've already locked onto her. I'll go find her soon enough. Tell her to be careful." Ha ha ha. Jiang Hao laughed and then disappeared from the spot. After returning to his dwelling, Jiang Hao thought about Hai Ming. "I still can't tell if he is among the top 3,000 members. It seems I still need to practice more." On a road in the south, a man with a blindfold and a lantern walked under the clear sky. His peculiar appearance attracted the glances of some of the people around. He walked from a bustling area to a barren road. Many people were curious, but as he reached the barren land, no one paid him any mind. They lowered their heads and walked their own paths. "Some walk the road for a stroll, while others exhaust their energy just to live," said a man. As he passed by these people, someone approached him. "Senior, we found the location of the Heavenly Note sect. We can go now." "But I heard that there are rules to follow once inside," the blindfolded man said. "Yes, we can lure people out, or use special methods to get in," the person said. "Special methods to get in?" the blindfolded man asked. "Yes. The Heavenly Note sect has a forest where space distorts. If we find the right way, there's a chance we can enter. Such methods are rare, and even the Heavenly Note sect may not be aware. We pay attention to the smallest details," said the person. "Is that so? What do we do after we get in?" the blindfolded man asked. "Well, look for a saintess called Miao Tinglian and her partner, Mu Qi. They will know where the divine soul is. The divine soul is extremely important to us, and we don't want to miss out on it," the person said. "That's the plan, but I'm not sure. Let's give it a try," the blindfolded man said. He continued ahead. "I heard that the heavenly fragrance Dao flower is also there. Can I see it?" he asked. "Senior, you must be joking. If you want to see it, you can. But we'll need to find the exact location of it. We'll send you a message if we find out." "That's good," said the blindfolded man. Chapter 887, Demoness. Want to know how you look in my eyes? Around early February, it was exactly 4 months since Jiang Hao had returned from the West. He had spent most of his time practicing the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit. He could now detect the members of the Great Thousand God sect without a problem. It was effective, but he still couldn't find Feng Hua's true body. Perhaps it wouldn't take long to find her. Once Feng Hua was captured and put in the lawless tower, Jiang Hao would be needed to interrogate her. Sooner or later, he would make her speak. Jiang Hao watered the heavenly fragrance Dao flower and checked his interface. Name, Jiang Hao, age, 39, cultivation method, heavenly sound 100 revolutions, Hongmeng Heart Sutra, divine ability, 9 revolutions death substitution, unique, daily appraisal, clear and pure heart, reappearance of hidden spirit, divine might, revival of withered tree, heavenly cauldron, indestructible Vajra, lifeblood, 95-100, can be cultivated, cultivation, 93-100, can be cultivated, divine abilities, 2/3, cannot be obtained, 39. Jiang Hao couldn't help but feel emotional. He still remembered when he first met Hong Yuye. He was 19. 20 years had passed in the blink of an eye. He was considered middle-aged. He went to the spirit herb garden. It had been a month. Cheng Chou and the others should be back by now. He wondered if they would bring trouble back with them. Junior brother Jiang, a man walked over to him. Jiang Hao knew this person. It was senior brother Lian Daoji. He was at the peak of the Golden Core realm. He was almost at the brink of the primordial spirit realm. Jiang Hao knew him because of the incident with the bitter fruit. The spirit beast had snatched away his fruits before. Senior brother Lian, it's been too long, said Jiang Hao. Indeed. Lian Daoji smiled. I wouldn't visit without a reason. This time, I have some matters to discuss with you personally. It's mainly a favor I need to ask from you. Of course, please speak freely, said Jiang Hao. Do you still remember the bitter fruits? Lian Daoji asked. I do. Jiang Hao nodded. The bitter fruits are ripe again. We've been guarding it for a long time. However, like last time, someone must have taken it away. Jiang Hao was stunned. Did the beast snatch away your bitter fruits again? Ha ha. It's not really snatching it away, is it? It's the survival of the fittest, after all. I was wondering if I could buy them back from you. I'll be honest. I'm about to advance, and I need those fruits badly. Jiang Hao naturally agreed and told him he would personally deliver them in a few days. 3 days later, the spirit beast was back. After he questioned them, Xiao Li handed over the bitter fruits. Jiang Hao sighed. He asked Cheng Chou what had happened. The spirit beast and Xiao Li suddenly felt that the fruits were good, so they went to take them. The spirit beast was too powerful, so the others didn't even bother stopping it. If it weren't for the beast declaring its name, they might have never found out who did it. Jiang Hao felt helpless. It wasn't good that the spirit beast gave its name every time it did something because it would be associated with Jiang Hao eventually. After obtaining the bitter fruits, Jiang Hao went to the Candlelight Pill Pavilion to personally give them to Lian Daoji. This time, Lian Daoji didn't offer him spirit stones but handed over 200 top-grade spirit herb seeds. He said that these were top-grade spirit herbs from their place and told Jiang how to try planting them. He emphasized that this was just an experiment, and Jiang Hao didn't have to worry if it didn't turn out well. Thank you, senior brother, Jiang Hao said gratefully. This was much better than spirit stones. I should thank you. If someone else had obtained the bitter fruit, it would be troublesome for me, said Lian Daoji. Both sides were pleased. Jiang Hao brought back 200 high-grade seeds with him. He didn't know how many blue bubbles they would produce. It probably wouldn't be much. After spending 2 days appraising them, he found out that they would take around 6 months to take root and sprout. Moreover, it would require quite a few spirit stones. If no spirit stones were used, it would take almost a year. Jiang Hao calculated that it would cost him about 30,000 spirit stones. He wasn't in a rush, but he was afraid that the sect would issue a task. If that happened, he might have to leave midway. That would be a wasted effort. 2 months later, around early April, Jiang Hao saw some blue bubbles. Cultivation +1, lifeblood +1, he looked at his interface. Lifeblood, 100-100, can be cultivated, cultivation, 100-100, can be cultivated. After that, he went to the spirit herb garden with the spirit beast to take care of the spirit herbs. In the evening, Jiang Hao returned. After checking the surroundings and making sure everything was safe, he began to cultivate. He closed his eyes and meditated. The next day, at noon, purple energy circulated around Jiang Hao. At that moment, his strength was at its peak. Every part of his body was filled with power. Jiang Hao sighed in relief. Middle stage of the immortal ascension realm. I feel a significant change in my body, and my power is so much more robust now. If I encounter the Holy Master again, I'll be more confident. The previous fight with the Holy Master had not been easy. It's better to improve one's cultivation as much as possible before fighting an enemy. It's the safest. With that in mind, Jiang Hao walked to the courtyard to water the divine flower. He needed to do that task every day. If he missed even one day, all his efforts would be in vain. Getting the bubbles wasn't as easy as he thought. It had become more important since he got very few bubbles after advancing to higher realms. Just as he entered the courtyard, he could smell a faint fragrance. A figure in red appeared in front of him. It was Hong Yuye. She was sitting under a tree and drinking tea. Greeting, senior. Jiang Hao bowed to her. Have you advanced? Hong Yuye turned and looked at Jiang Hao. Yes. Jiang Hao nodded. I've advanced to the late stage of the Golden Core realm. Hong Yuye chuckled. How old are you? 39. Late stage of the Golden Core realm at 39? At the very least, I won't let you down, senior, said Jiang Hao. Reaching the late stage of the Golden Core realm at 39 was quite a feat. It was only slightly slower than the one with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. What new cultivation techniques have you practiced? Hong Yuye asked. Jiang Hao was taken aback. It seems you're only focused on cultivation and have no idea what kind of person you are. Hong Yuye chuckled. Jiang Hao was even more puzzled. There was nothing special about himself that he had noticed. Do you want to know what you look like in my eyes? Hong Yuye stared at Jiang Hao. Chapter 888, Demoness. If I want to borrow your gaze, will you allow it? How do I look in her eyes? Jiang Hao's heart raced, but he quickly realized that he had misunderstood her. It wasn't about what kind of person he was in the other person's eyes, but rather how Hong Yuye felt about what he had cultivated. In her eyes, his current state was different from usual. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, is there something different about he had only been cultivating the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit lately? Was there an issue with that? Let's start with what you've been cultivating. Hong Yuye gestured for Jiang Hao to sit across from her. He sat down. From the fragrance, he could tell that it was red azure tea. I've been cultivating the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit, said Jiang Hao truthfully and handed her the book he had gotten from Hai Luo. Hong Yuye flipped through it and asked, how much time did you spend cultivating this? It took quite some time, Jiang Hao said. Hong Yuye raised her eyebrows and looked at him. After a while, Hong Yuye placed the book on the table. Indeed, this can allow one to see the spiritual traces of the Great Thousand God sect. But have you ever thought that you will leave some traces as well? Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao. The Heavenly King has no fear because his cultivation realm is sufficient, and his spirit is refined. He also has the Heavenly King's fortune. But you are only at the Golden Core realm. You might leave quite a bit of traces behind. But I haven't noticed anything, Jiang Hao said. Do you feel that you're in danger? Hong Yuye asked. The sect is quite safe, but it's always good to be cautious, Jiang Hao said truthfully. Hong Yuye nodded. You never let down your vigilance, which has made you fall into a blind spot. Seeing Jiang Hao's confusion, Hong Yuye said, let go of everything and let yourself completely calm down. In so many years, have you truly found peace? Peace? Jiang Hao was surprised. He thought he had lived peacefully. However, what exactly was true peace? The world was inherently dangerous. Was peace a place with few dangers, or was it letting go of all defenses? If it was the former, he had experienced peace, but if it was the latter, completely letting go of all defenses was something he could never achieve. He was always on guard. Hong Yuye was challenging him to let go of all defenses. He would never be able to completely relax. Without complete peace, you won't see your true self, she said. Are you afraid of me? No, said Jiang Hao. I respect you, senior. What's your cultivation realm? She asked. Late stage of the Golden Core realm. What do you think my cultivation realm is? Maybe beyond the Immortal Ascension platform. Would it be possible for someone in my realm to kill someone at the Golden Core realm? It would be as easy as a flick of a finger. Then, if I really wanted to kill you, would I go through all the trouble of making you lower your guard? Jiang Hao lowered his head. That was true. If she wanted to kill him, she wouldn't bother making him lower his defenses. However, it was natural for him to be wary. He couldn't just lower all his defenses. He wanted to do as best as he could to survive. Even if she wasn't present, he wouldn't be able to let his guard down. After a moment of silence, Hong Yuye smiled. So, do you want to see yourself through my eyes? Jiang Hao hesitated and then nodded. Hong Yuye reached out and Jiang Hao placed his hands in hers. Close your eyes and resonate your energy to the palm imprint on your chest, said Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao nodded and then activated his spiritual energy. His eyes were tightly closed. He appeared calm, but some spiritual fluctuations occurred around him. It was not as calm as it appeared. His spirit was striking as if it expanded outward for some unknown reason. Although restrained, it was not as smooth as it should be. There were crinkles in the corner of his aura that couldn't blend in completely. It seemed to be caused by improper use of the spiritual aspects. At that moment, the warmth in his chest disappeared, and the image vanished. When he opened his eyes, he realized that was how she saw him. However, something seemed strange. It appeared that the vision was not complete. He could only see the spiritual part. Hong Yuye withdrew her hand. Did you see it? Yes. Thank you, Senior. Jiang Hao nodded. In the past, he had no idea that there were spiritual traces in his body. He realized that cultivating the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit was not as easy as he had imagined. There were drawbacks to it. If he encountered a powerful practitioner from the Great Thousand God sect, they would easily notice him. However, he wasn't sure how to find a solution to this. Hong Yuye smiled. How do you want to thank me for that? Jiang Hao was stunned. What do you want me to do for you, Senior? Jiang Hao asked cautiously. Come here. Hong Yuye beckoned. Jiang Hao got up and walked over to her in confusion. Hong Yuye placed her hand on his chest and activated the palm imprint. A sharp pain surged through Jiang Hao's body. At the same time, he felt a vast power. He was blasted away. Thud. Jiang Hao collided with the wall. It hurt a bit. Hong Yuye smiled. Consider that as a thank you gift. Jiang Hao stood up and nodded. He couldn't understand whether getting blasted away was the thank you gift or the palm imprint. However, it was the first time he had seen himself through someone else's vision. How much can your gaze see? Hong Yuye asked while sipping tea. Not much, said Jiang Hao. Not even with the heaven lock technique, she asked. It reveals some of the hidden things, but I can't see much even with it, Jiang Hao said. If one day I want to borrow your heaven lock technique to see something, will you agree to it? Hong Yuye asked. Jiang Hao was surprised. If he was right, one needed to have the palm imprint to borrow the other person's vision. That meant the person doing the borrowing must have the palm imprint on their body. Jiang Hao tried not to think about what that might mean. What are you thinking about? Hong Yuye suddenly asked. Nothing, Jiang Hao hurriedly said. I was just thinking about what you asked. I would definitely assist you as best as I can. Would you lend me all your strength? Hong Yuye asked. Yes. Jiang Hao nodded. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao closely. He didn't know what she might be thinking. Chapter 889, reporting to the Law Enforcement Hall in the mountain village in the west, an elegant woman stood before the village. She was surrounded by a celestial aura and seemed detached from worldly affairs. She gazed at the abandoned village in silence. Her eyes were calm but a bit nostalgic. After a long while, she walked toward the village. Her celestial aura gradually diminished like she was finally descending on the mortal realm. People on the road avoided her. The woman observed them but said nothing. Some people remained content where they were. They didn't want anything. Others always looked for an opportunity to be better. The woman looked at a person and snapped her fingers. She gave the person a chance. Whether they accepted it or not depended on them. Finally, the woman arrived in front of a collapsed house. She stood there silently. As the sun set, she walked toward the slope behind the village. She noticed a grave along the way. The place was overgrown with weeds, but the grave was neat. Her steps suddenly slowed. It was as though it took her immense effort to take another step toward it. She stood in front of the grave. Her calm facade cracked as she looked at the tombstone. She opened her mouth but didn't say a word. Tears streamed down her face. Father, mother. I'm here. Your daughter is now an immortal. Yang Yuezhi knelt in front of the tombstone and wept. Long-buried memories resurfaced and made her nostalgic for her parents. After a long time, Yang Yuezhi finally calmed down. She examined the tombstone and was surprised to sense an extraordinary presence. The graves exuded a hint of spiritual energy. The weeds that grew around were not ordinary. Who has been tending to this grave? She thought for a moment. She couldn't believe it. Did the grave change just because that person cleaned it? Yang Yuezhi spent a few days at the graves and finally left. She spoke a lot about her journey in those 3 days. She talked at length about her struggle and her efforts. She wished her parents were still around. Her eyes turned red with emotion. She promised to live a good life and fulfill her parents' expectations. After leaving the hill, she calmed down. A while later, Yang Yuezhi appeared at the Gentian cliff. She had always known that there was something below the cliff, but she had forgotten many things from the past. She had been here before. Beyond that, she couldn't remember anything. I wonder what's below. Yang Yuezhi had no intention of going down. She just stood there and observed. Suddenly, a roar echoed. A dragon's cry resonated in all directions. 3 figures swiftly flew up from below, with the illusions of real dragons chasing behind them. Whoosh! The 3 figures soared into the sky, followed closely by the dragon shadows. Yang Yuezhi was surprised. With a wave of her hand, a powerful force suppressed the dragon's roar. Boom! The dragon illusion was barred. At that moment, the dragon's shadow turned to look at her. Finally, it dissipated in the sky. Yang Yuezhi was speechless. It seemed like she had angered the dragon clan for no reason. She saw a white light as she watched the 3 figures leave. It was the moon wheel. The one with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment had the moon wheel. After that, she turned and left. At the Heavenly Note sect, Jiang Hao returned to the Cliff of Broken Hearts Spirit Herb Garden in the evening. Hong Yuye's words worried him a bit. His thoughts had run wild. Luckily, he had time to calm himself down after she left. Whenever she was around, the Heaven Extinction GU poison had no effect. But after she left, the poison helped him calm his state of mind. Before leaving, Hong Yuye had helped examine the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit. In the end, she extracted a small technique from it. With that technique, he could verify whether someone else was from the Great Thousand God sect. The likelihood of being discovered was high, but it was still useful. Since he was going to try it, he should be prepared. If he was discovered, he needed to be ready to defend himself. Jiang Hao learned the small technique because he didn't want to rely on the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit entirely. Fortunately, the spiritual remnant he had left behind had disappeared. Although he couldn't bring himself to completely relax, his condition seemed to be fine. Most likely, Hong Yuye's palm technique had taken care of it. Jiang Hao, besides taking care of the Spirit Herb Garden, waited for news from the Lawless Tower. However, before receiving any tasks from the Lawless Tower, he received the sect mission first. This made him somewhat worried. The high-grade spirit herbs still required 4 more months to mature. If he set out early, the spirit stones he had spent would go to waste. It wouldn't just be the loss of spirit stones. He wouldn't receive any bubbles either. Senior brother Jiang, you have been assigned a mission. Cheng Cho informed him as Jiang Hao arrived at the Spirit Herb Garden. It's a patrol mission, Cheng Cho said. A patrol mission? Jiang Hao was curious. It was the first time he had heard of a patrol mission. Occasionally, he saw some sect members patrolling the area. Did they say where? Jiang Hao asked. For the patrol mission, you have to report to the Law Enforcement Hall, and then assignments will be given, Cheng Cho said. I've done this mission before, and there's no distinction in the cultivation realm. In a team, there might be people from the Lifeblood Refinement realm, Foundation Establishment realm, and Golden Core realm. What about Primordial Spirit realm? Jiang Hao asked. That, Cheng Cho was a bit embarrassed. I don't have a high enough cultivation realm to recognize them even if I met them. Jiang Hao nodded. It was unexpected that he had to report to the Law Enforcement Hall. Usually, he was caught and escorted there. This time, he had to report for duty. Life was truly unpredictable. He asked for more details, and Cheng Cho explained as best as he could. Patrols may not return daily, but there was no fixed time to report for duty. As long as a person reported within 6 months, it was quite all right. The patrol period lasted for half a year. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. He still had a chance to collect the bubbles. He had spent 30,000 spirit stones. If he couldn't collect the bubbles, the losses would have been big. In the south, Old Man Corpse Sea walked through the mountains and forests and gazed into the distance. I'll go to Heavenly Gate sect first. The south might provide many gains. There might be some special places that I can find. With his cultivation, he naturally couldn't rely on the goodwill of the Heavenly Gate sect to provide information. But he could open the gates of the Corpse Sea and let some corpses out. He had nothing to fear. Chapter 890, The circle of time as the sun rose in the morning, Jiang Hao left the courtyard with the spirit beast and headed to the spirit herb garden. He returned to the courtyard at sunset. He repeated this daily. Time passed quickly, and Jiang Hao continued to spend spirit stones while also working hard to earn them. However, what he earned was far from enough to cover his expenses. 4 months later, around early August, Jiang Hao's spirit stones decreased by 25,000. He was only left with 180,000. He considered spending 10,000 spirit stones on the divine soul of the Holy Master. He still had much to absorb. He decided to do it little by little. He headed to the spirit herb garden early that day. Why are you up so early today, Master? The spirit beast yawned. The peach tree was ripening, and Xiao Li occasionally ate the fruits before dinner. Master, I feel someone approaching us. But when they hear my voice, they retreat, said the spirit beast. Jiang Hao didn't pay much attention. There had been people from the Heavenly Saint sect who approached him during this time, but they weren't afraid of the spirit beast. They were just observing him. Soon, someone would take action. Whether they were here for Miao Tinglian or Mu Qi remained to be seen. Apart from the Heavenly Saint sect, there were also people from the Great Thousand God sect. However, they weren't very strong. Regarding the sect mission, the people from the Law Enforcement Hall had urged him to join 3 times already. With only 2 months remaining, he had to go. There was still no news from the Lawless Tower. Perhaps they were taking things slow because of the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit technique. The fallen immortal clan hadn't made a move yet, so the Great Thousand God sect was waiting. Before, it was difficult to find them, but now it was much easier. At the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao saw many bubbles as he entered. There were all sorts of bubbles: blue, green, white. He sighed in relief. Junior brother Jiang, Miao Tinglian called for him. He pretended not to have heard and walked toward the bubbles instead. He collected the bubbles. Soon after, numerous bubbles merged into his body. Strength +1, Spirit Sword +1, Cultivation +1, Lifeblood +1, Cultivation +1. Dozens of bubbles flowed into his body, and he could feel the changes. Miao Tinglian walked over to him. Junior brother Jiang, what are you doing? Senior sister Miao, what brings you here? Jiang Hao felt helpless. Miao Tinglian's cultivation realm had indeed improved. If her talent wasn't properly utilized, it would be such a waste. Let me tell you something, she said, when you go for your patrolling mission, as for senior sister Lu from the Law Enforcement Hall. Jiang Hao looked puzzled. She is at the early stage of the primordial spirit realm. She appears cold and distant but is actually very soft at heart. She might not be stunning at a glance but is very pleasing to the eye. She is also looking for a partner. Junior brother Jiang, where are you going? Miao Tinglian shouted. I have to go prepare, Jiang Hao said and hurried away. He thought Miao Tinglian was there to pass him an important message, but she was there to play matchmaking yet again. He checked his interface. He found that he had gotten a total of 26 bubbles. 26. It's more than I expected. He thought that the probability of finding bubbles would decrease drastically after reaching the Immortal Ascension platform. Unexpectedly, he had obtained quite a few. In other words, with enough high-grade spirit herbs, combined with the spirit stones, he could advance completely to the late stage of the Immortal Ascension platform. He had the spirit stones. He just needed the high-grade spirit herbs. Jiang Hao let out a sigh and tended to the spirit herb garden for a while. After that, he made some arrangements for the spirit herb garden. He had to go and complete the sect mission. With Cheng Chou handling ordinary matters of the garden and the spirit beast on standby, it was enough. Jiang Hao felt quite sentimental. It seemed that he might not be needed at the spirit herb garden, after all. It was hard to say if he would continue to stay in the garden in the future. One day, he might become one of the top disciples. Would he still be guarding the spirit herb garden at that time? He didn't know for sure. He was still far from competing for the position of a top disciple. Junior brother Han might be refining the sword embryo right about now. He hadn't yet paid the 1,000 spirit stones. Jiang Hao headed to the Law Enforcement Hall. There were still some seniors handling logistics. Jiang Hao asked about the patrol mission. Patrol mission? The senior sister at the counter asked as she looked up at Jiang Hao. Junior brother Jiang from the Cliff of Broken Hearts? Jiang Hao nodded. Yes. It's delayed by 4 months. It's quite unusual, she said. Patrolling missions are also done in teams. For this mission, there will be 2 Foundation Establishment Realm Cultivators and 1 Lifeblood Refinement Realm Cultivator. Which branch does the Lifeblood Refinement Realm Disciple belong to? Jiang Hao asked. Lifeblood Refinement Realm Cultivators usually didn't go on sect missions. The Cliff of Broken Hearts. Surprisingly, it was from his own branch. Jiang Hao thought about it. Could it be a new disciple? If you have confirmed your timing, you can go and find Senior Sister Lu. Shall assign you your patrol route. Jiang Hao nodded and thanked her. The sooner he went on the mission, the better. He found the senior sister. She looked cold and distant. She was also very pale in complexion. Was this who Miao Tinglian was referring to? She seemed to be in the early stage of the primordial spirit realm. He wondered how Miao Tinglian knew her. Jiang Hao explained why he was there. For now, you can start from the outer sect. If you achieve something, you can choose your preferred route. Of course, you can also follow the sect's arrangements and patrol the entire sect, Senior Sister Lu said. Jiang Hao nodded. He didn't expect to be able to choose his own route. But it was only possible if he had achievements. It was safer to start with the outer sect. With a Lifeblood Refinement Realm Cultivator and 2 Foundation Establishment Realm Cultivators, safety was a priority. The next day, Jiang Hao received the list of names. There were a total of 5 people on the team including him. The 4 others were Zheng Shijiu from the Ice Moon Valley, Lin Mo from the Law Enforcement Peak, Zhao Qingxue from the White Moon Lake, and Lin Ji from the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Jiang Hao was stunned. Who had chosen Lin Ji? Somebody must have helped him. Without someone's influence, he wouldn't be chosen for a sect mission. Patrol missions were usually not dangerous. Did the person want Lin Ji to get some reward? He looked at Lin Mo and Zhao Qingxue's names, and something dawned on him. Perhaps it was because of them. There was also senior brother Zheng. He didn't expect to meet him again. The mission was to begin 3 days later. They would meet and set off. Jiang Hao was supposed to lead the group. 3 days later, Jiang Hao arrived at the foot of the Law Enforcement Peak and waited quietly. Zheng Shijiu was the first to arrive. He smiled when he saw Jiang Hao. Junior brother Jiang, we meet again. Senior brother Zheng, how have you been? Jiang Hao said politely. All good. Once again, we'll have to rely on your strength, junior brother Jiang. I still hope I can rely on your help, senior brother Zheng. Whenever he was busy, senior brother Zheng always handled the matters. Jiang Hao liked working with him. The 3 others were recruited into the sect when they had been all together. If Senior Sister Yu and Senior Sister Xin were here, it would be a reunion. It was as though time had made a full circle. Chapter 891, Senior Brother, your choice is too ordinary. Jiang Hao and Zheng Shijiu had known each other for a long time. They had known each other from when Jiang Hao was 19. Back then, senior brother Zheng was in the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. 20 years later, he had made it to the early stage of the Golden Core realm. He was, in fact, at the brink of the middle stage. At that time, Jiang Hao had been in the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm too. He had made it to the middle stage of the Immortal Ascension platform. Unknowingly, I came this far. Jiang Hao felt like 20 years ago had been just yesterday. 20 years ago, when we first met, you were only at the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Now you're already in the late stage of the Golden Core realm. You've surpassed me by a lot, said Zheng Shijiu. At that time, I never expected that you'd progress this much. I was just lucky, Jiang Hao said modestly. This is not just luck, junior brother Jiang. I think you might have a chance of becoming a top disciple in the future. I wonder if we'll still do tasks together. Tnen, said Zneng Si eagerly. Senior brother, you must be joking. Regardless, you are still my senior. I often find myself relying on your strength, said Jiang Hao. Even if he became a top disciple, he would still address Zhang Shijiu as senior. If it made him uncomfortable, he wouldn't do it. But he knew Zhang Shijiu would be okay with it. They had worked together so many times before. It was the same with Miao Tinglian and Mu Qi. They treated him well and took care of him. So, he would always address them as seniors. In the Cliff of Broken Hearts, apart from Xiao Li, they were the closest to him. He wasn't sure if Miao Tinglian was nice to him because he had helped her before, or if she was naturally friendly. Although he didn't like it when she pestered him to find a partner, he hadn't said anything to her. Lin Mo, Zhao Qingxue, and Lin Ji, we recruited them together back then. I never thought we would be doing missions together, said Zhang Shijiu. Jiang Hao nodded. Time really did fly by. The young disciples who had just joined the sect back then had become so powerful. Perhaps one day, they will surpass us all, Jiang Hao said. Haha, Zhang 19 said bitterly, Junior brother Jiang, please don't even joke about it. I feel like they won't be able to surpass you. Jiang Hao did not say anything. Zhang Shijiu truly believed that these three couldn't surpass Jiang Hao. He also thought that Jiang Hao himself had secrets. He had sensed something when they had worked together before. However, he hadn't paid much attention to it at that time. Some things were better left unknown. The three others arrived after a while. Zhang Shijiu didn't mind waiting. He knew Lin Ji was here because of Jiang Hao. It was well known that Jiang Hao had helped Lin Ji immensely so that he could stay in the sect. Otherwise, how would he still be in the sect despite not being able to advance from the lifeblood refinement realm? Moreover, he wouldn't have been selected for sect missions. Jiang Hao was concerned about Lin Mo was a part of the law enforcement hall. He definitely had some connections. Even if Lin Mo didn't have a very high cultivation realm, he could still help Lin Ji through his connections. However, it was quite dangerous for Lin Ji. Jiang Hao felt helpless. There was nothing he could do except help Lin Ji become stronger in the coming months. He also needed to find the time to give him some magical treasures. He hadn't met him in so many months. Senior brother Jiang. Lin Ji was surprised to see Jiang Hao. He felt embarrassed. He looked as though he wanted to explain himself. Jiang Hao smiled and just nodded. Lin Mo and Zhao Qingxue greeted them without emotion. We apologize for the wait, seniors. Zhang 19 frowned. It seemed that these two had forgotten about him. It seemed they lacked basic courtesy too. In the sect, it wasn't necessary to be influential, but it was important to make sure one didn't offend others. Sometimes, small matters could lead to huge resentment. If they hadn't recruited these three young people, it wouldn't matter. However, since Jiang Hao and Zheng Shijiu had been among the ones who recruited them, some form of recognition and politeness was expected. They had made rapid progress and were strong. So, that might protect them. Zheng Shijiu didn't say anything. He felt that Jiang Hao didn't mind it either. Let's go, Jiang Hao said. After that, the five flew on their swords. Lin Mo led Lin Ji along. Jiang Hao didn't pay much attention to what they were planning. He would observe them first. 4 outer sect patrols. There was a place where shifts had to be handed over to others. It might just be time for the handover. After a while, they arrived at the outpost. It was located in the mountains and was surrounded by rocks. In front of them, there was a stream. There were some people there in groups of 3 and 5. It seemed like they were all waiting. Jiang Hao walked into the innermost hut. A man in the primordial spirit realm looked at him. Jiang Hao of the Cliff of Broken Hearts? Yes. Jiang Hao nodded. I saw your name at the law enforcement hall. It's quite surprising for you to be assigned to a patrol mission. Which route do you want? He asked. Jiang Hao was surprised. The man laughed. Surprised? A bit. Jiang Hao nodded. No need to be surprised. Perhaps the place you want to go to is the place we need to investigate more, the middle-aged man said. Jiang Hao understood. Jiang Hao was still a suspect. So, whichever route he chose would be monitored closely. Jiang Hao chose the safest route. The area was not small, but the location was great. It was a place unexposed to outside forces. There were no dangers around. The others there were also from the outer sect, so it should be relatively safe. The most likely danger would be from spies. After all, many undercover agents had joined the sect and were most likely among the outer sect disciples. This area is mostly for the outer sect disciples to rest and cultivate. The middle-aged man was surprised by Jiang Hao's choice. There wouldn't be many dangers here, but there wouldn't be any gains either. The patrol missions were sometimes beneficial because some seniors occasionally gave lectures on cultivation. Patrolling was safe and had benefits. But Jiang Hao hadn't chosen any of the good routes. He had chosen the one that was the most ordinary. Lin Mo frowned. Senior brother Jiang, can we patrol the public alchemy area of the Candlelight Pill Pavilion instead? There were always things happening at the alchemy area of the Candlelight Pill Pavilion. If one wanted to learn something from there, they had to pay a small price. This junior has a point. The middle-aged man laughed. How about going to the alchemy area of the Candlelight Pill Pavilion instead? Jiang Hao looked at Lin Mo and shook his head. Let's start from here first. All right then, the middle-aged man gave Jiang Hao a token. It's just the right time for the handover. The token has the patrol route. If anything happens, you can activate the token, and our people will come to find you. Jiang Hao nodded and thanked him. He then led the group away. Lin Mo and Zhao Qingxue seemed reluctant. Chapter 892, Advanced on the spot. The sect is not safe lately. Let's stay in the outer sect area for a while, said Jiang Hao calmly. It seemed that people like Lin Mo were planning to go to the alchemy area of the Candlelight Pill Pavilion, which was opposite to Jiang Hao's decision. Senior brother Jiang, we asked around and found out that some things are happening in the alchemy area of the Candlelight Pill Pavilion, said Lin Mo earnestly. We might gain something there. Zhao Qingxue said, I heard from some seniors from the White Moon Lake that many people in the Candlelight Pill Pavilion are currently refining pills. If we go there, it might benefit our cultivation immensely. Jiang Hao looked at the two and sighed inwardly. What cultivation benefits did they expect to get at their level? They believed they could benefit because they already had the advantage. What about the others? Besides, many people gathering in one place meant that there was definitely something strange going on there. Jiang Hao shook his head. Your cultivation realms are still weak. Let's try the outer sect area first. But if we don't choose now, we'll need achievements later to make a choice. We finally have a chance because of the seniors, Lin Mo exclaimed. Jiang Hao had his doubts. Did the senior from before offer him a choice of routes because of Lin Mo and Zhao Qingxue? It was not entirely unbelievable. Where there was competition, there was likely something troublesome brewing. In contrast, the outer sect area was different. He could turn a blind eye and be safe. Senior brother, it's not too late to change our minds, said Lin Mo. Jiang Hao lowered his head. He was in a dilemma. If it were any other time, he would have taken action, but he didn't want to deal with these two in front of Lin Ji. Junior brother Lin, said Zheng Shijiu coldly, don't you think you've gone too far? Do you think you can do whatever you want? Lin Mo wanted to speak, but he was pulled back by Lin Ji. Why are you pulling me away? Lin Mo turned back angrily. Just listen to senior brother, Lin Ji whispered. Lin Mo was still frustrated but didn't say anything more. Jiang Hao looked at them and then turned away. Let's go. It was quite troublesome, but it was harmless. He didn't need to pay too much attention to it. Everyone had their own thoughts and opinions. He couldn't force them to follow him. After completing the handover, Jiang Hao led the group on their swords to start their patrol. Below were many outer sect disciples. Some were chopping wood to temper their bodies, some were carrying water, and a few were meditating and cultivating. At that moment, the people looked up. They all yearned to be immortal cultivators and fly on their swords. Jiang Hao sighed with emotion. More than 20 years ago, he was like that. He would look up at the powerful people and wish for the same. He assumed they were on important business too. But it turned out they were also just patrolling at that time. He had become the person he had admired when he was a child. It didn't make him feel at ease. Back then, He thought it was much safer after reaching the Foundation Establishment realm. However, when he reached that realm, he realized the danger was just beginning. Jiang Hao's divine light converged, and he gained some insight. His aura suddenly diminished. The others didn't notice anything, but Zheng Shijiao felt that something was strange. However, it was very vague. He calmed down. It was probably Jiang Hao's influence. Someone below is fighting, Zhao Qingxue said. Jiang Hao and the others looked down. They saw 3 outer sect disciples joining forces to deal with a young boy. At first, the young boy withstood them, but he was failing. Jiang Hao ignored it and continued flying on his sword. A pressure descended. In an instant, the 4 people below were terrified. They didn't dare fight. Such trivial matters shouldn't concern us, said Jiang Hao. They were on patrol. They weren't expected to intervene in matters that didn't concern the sect. If people stopped fighting after noticing the immortals flying in the sky, it was because they were terrified of standing out. It would be dangerous to be noticed. The patrol lasted for a day or 2. After that, they went back to rest and waited for the next shift. The outer sect area was vast, and they had only covered a small part of it. Jiang Hao was on duty. Lin Ji walked over to him. Senior brother Jiang, I think senior brother Lin Mo and senior sister Zhao Qingxue brought me along because they think my cultivation hasn't progressed, said Lin Ji in explanation. Jiang Hao looked at him. Before you advanced, did they approach you? Lin Ji was stunned. Yes, they did. Did you agree to it? Jiang Hao asked. Lin Ji shook his head. No, I didn't. This is the power of strength and influence. It will unknowingly change you even when you try not to let it, said Jiang Hao and looked at him. It's not a bad thing. It's also inevitable, but if you let it get to your head, it'll be your doom. Lin Ji finally realized it. He hadn't thought about it before. So, what should I do? He asked. Let it be for now. You don't need to do anything. Just understand what's happening and keep yourself in check. After that, he asked Lin Ji to sit down, and he explained some details of the Star Moon Lifeblood Refinement cultivation at length. When he was explaining, Zheng Shijiao approached them and stood guard. Jiang Hao continued with the lesson. Now, I'll explain the various stages of lifeblood refinement and some foundation establishment. It might be useful for you in the future. Zheng Shijiao hesitated and looked at Jiang Hao. When he realized that Jiang Hao didn't mind, he also sat down. He thought there was nothing he didn't know about lifeblood refinement and foundation establishment realm. Jiang Hao explained the lifeblood refinement realm in great detail. Lin Ji understood only part of it, but Zheng Shijiao became more attentive as he listened. He found it unbelievable. There were many things he hadn't understood even though he had advanced beyond that realm. Later, when the explanation moved to the foundation establishment realm, he felt even more shocked. The realm that had been static all along was unexpectedly pulsating. Zheng Shijiao looked at Jiang Hao in awe. If his explanations continued, he felt that he might find the opportunity to actually advance in his cultivation. Although Jiang Hao didn't look at senior brother Zheng, he sensed the change in his aura. He said to Lin Ji, I will continue with the Golden Core realm explanation. After a while, the Golden Core aura spread. Zheng Shijiao advanced on the spot. Chapter 893, Meeting a strong enemy. Lin Mo and Zhao Qingxue were meditating. They were thinking about how to proceed next. They had planned this for a very long time. They couldn't let Jiang Hao ruin their plans. The only solution was to go their own way. They needed to find an opening to meet the patrolling members of the Candlelight Pill Pavilion and then pass through. However, before they could start discussing their next step, a sudden golden core aura spread everywhere. They were startled. They rushed over and found that senior brother Zheng had advanced unexpectedly to the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. This surprised them. How had he advanced here of all places? Lin Ji was deep in thought, and Jiang Hao was sitting cross-legged on the ground. When the two arrived, Jiang Hao made a shushing gesture and told them to step back. Zheng Shijiao shouldn't be disturbed in the middle of advancement. Jiang Hao switched patrols with someone the next day and waited for Zheng Shijiao to finish his advancement. It took 3 days. Senior brother Zheng successfully advanced, with Jiang Hao guarding him throughout. Ordinarily, it would have taken a longer time. Sorry for the trouble, junior brother Jiang, said Zheng Shijiao in gratitude. He knew that advancement required its own time and disrupting it in the middle was fatal. They could take from a few days up to a month. This time, it was quick because Jiang Hao helped. It was nothing, senior brother Zheng, Jiang Hao said politely. After that, he planned to start patrolling again. During these 3 days, Lin Mo and Zhao Qingxue spent most of their time outside. Jiang Hao didn't pay much attention to them. Since he had mentioned that they could use that time for anything, he had no right to meddle. He had only told them not to cause trouble with others. They were resting outside the outer gate during patrols, with Jiang Hao leading the way. They avoided crowded places. Their task was to patrol quietly. Senior brother, after patrolling, can we have some free time? Lin Mo suddenly asked. Sure. Half an hour of free time, said Jiang Hao. Can we split up during patrols? Lin Mo looked at Jiang Hao. Sometimes, patrolling separately is faster and more thorough. Junior brother Lin, junior sister Zhao, and I would like to try it by ourselves. Jiang Hao looked at them. It was unreasonable to split up, but if they wanted to go to the alchemy area of the Candlelight Pill Pavilion that badly, he wouldn't stop them. If he refused, they might do something stupid later. Sure. But do it at your own risk, said Jiang Hao. All right. Lin Mo nodded. We understand the rules. Sometimes danger comes silently. Be careful during your patrols and know when to retreat. Sometimes, the enemy may not want trouble, so they might strike stealthily, said Jiang Hao. Lin Mo and the others agreed. Jiang Hao didn't know whether they took it to heart, and it didn't matter to him. On the other side, in the forest, a blindfolded man with a lantern appeared at the edge of the forest with a young man. Senior, this should be the place, the young man said. This should be the outer gate of the Heavenly Note sect. We arrived so quickly, the blindfolded man said with a sigh. Are the people here dangerous? It's hard to say, the young man said. For you, senior, it shouldn't be too dangerous. You're joking, the blindfolded man said softly. If the Holy Master's divine soul was snatched away in this place, it means this place is not so simple. The people here might be quite dangerous. Otherwise, why is the heavenly fragrance Dao flower still thriving here? Let's go. Someone is coming this way. They must have noticed us. Someone is coming. The young man frowned and looked at the people who appeared at the edge of the forest. Who are you? Zhao Qingxue asked. Jiang Hao wanted to stop her but couldn't in time. The two people suddenly speared at the edge of the forest and caught him off guard. Otherwise, he would have steered the group away. Zhao Qingxue had already spoken, so they couldn't pretend to not have seen these two people. It wasn't normal for someone to carry a lantern in broad daylight. Considering the fluctuations in spiritual energy, these two were definitely not ordinary. The young man next to the blindfolded man let off a murderous intent. What's the matter, little girl? The blindfolded man walked out of the forest. Jiang Hao felt the surrounding aura change when they appeared in front of them. He didn't let Zhao Qingxue speak. Seniors, why are you here at the outer gate? Asked Jiang Hao. We were just taking a relaxing stroll. The blindfolded man turned to Jiang Hao. Are you on duty here, Junior? Yes. Apologies for the interruption, said Jiang Hao. Do you have something to ask? Said the blindfolded man politely. We will cooperate fully. No need. You're free to go, seniors, Jiang Hao said. Zhao Qingxue wanted to speak, but Jiang Hao stopped her. After the people left, she said, Senior brother Jiang, those two are suspicious. Suspicious? Jiang Hao turned to look at her. What's so suspicious about them? The lantern in broad daylight, for one. There is no such person in our sect. If there were, we would have heard rumors, Zhao Qingxue said seriously. Yeah. Jiang Hao nodded. Indeed, there aren't any. But what if they are someone who has been outside for a long time and are returning? Zhao Qingxue hesitated. Then, we should ask which branch they are from. We can at least verify. Moreover, he seems nice. He said he'd cooperate. Jiang Hao nodded slightly and didn't say much. He left. He knew they were from the Great Thousand God sect. He activated the reversal of the Great Thousand Spirit. The two people were definitely from the Great Thousand God sect. The one holding the lantern was especially powerful. There was no need to create trouble when they could avoid it. He could report it later. It was surprising that someone from the Great Thousand God sect had entered the forest. Meanwhile, the blindfolded man continued ahead. "You're just letting them go, Senior? Shouldn't we eliminate the witnesses?" the young man asked. "No. We should adhere to the rules here. Besides, they were very polite, so we should return the favor. We aren't here for them anyway. There is no need to create unnecessary trouble. Moreover, we should understand. They are just doing their jobs. We are all practitioners on the path of cultivation, and the road beneath our feet is not always easy. There's no need to make things difficult for each other," the blindfolded man said calmly. The young man didn't fully understand it, but he didn't press further. He was more concerned about what to do next. "Should we go find the saintess of the Heavenly Saint sect now?" "No rush. The Heavenly Saint sect may have valuable information. There are bound to be strong individuals around them. Let's explore first. Perhaps we'll find other things. Besides, more people from the Heavenly Saint sect will likely appear. There's no need for us to rush," the blindfolded man said as he looked at the sky. Chapter 894, You Should Know When to Stop. Junior brother. The patrol ended. They had half an hour of free time. Lin Emo and Zhao Qingxue left. They were uncertain about what they were going to do. After some thought, Jiang Hao went to the hut where the shifts were handed over. A senior at the Soul Ascension realm was there. "Any questions, Junior brother Jiang?" he asked. "Senior brother Wang, greetings." Jiang Hao bowed. "Are you changing your route?" "That's all right, of course," Senior brother Wang said with a smile. Jiang Hao shook his head. "Senior brother Wang, may I ask something?" "Go ahead," Senior brother Wang said generously. "Do you know if there are any seniors in our sect who carry lanterns during the carrying a lantern during the day?" Senior brother Wang frowned. "Have you met someone like that?" "Yes. I met them during the patrol on the edge of the forest," Jiang Hao said. Senior brother Wang lowered his head in thought. "Anything else that stood out?" "He was blindfolded," Jiang Hao said. Senior brother Wang nodded and let Jiang Hao go. He advised him not to make a big deal out of this matter. Jiang Hao nodded and left. That was all he could do. As for how the sect would handle it, that was their business. He wouldn't confront such a powerful enemy recklessly. Senior brother Wang seemed to know who the person was and would likely make some preparations. After all, as someone from the Law Enforcement Hall, he would know more about such matters than anyone else. As for the person's visit, it was probably related to the Holy Master. There was a chance that he was here for Miao Tinglian and Mu Qi. The sect had dealt with the Heavenly Saint sect many times before. They knew about the Holy Master and the connection to Miao Tinglian and Mu Qi. Most probably, they would be used as bait. Mu Qi could handle himself. The sect might just observe him. The people of the Lawless Tower might already be in wait. Back at the resting area, Jiang Hao found Lin Emo and the others. Lin Emo smiled and said, "Senior brother Jiang, tomorrow we plan to patrol on our own." Jiang Hao nodded. The next day, the patrol started at noon. Jiang Hao watched as Lin Emo, Zhao Qingxue, and Lin Ji left. "Aren't you bothered by it, Junior brother Jiang?" Zheng Shijiu curiously asked. "Bothered by what?" Jiang Hao went his own way. Without the three young followers, he felt that the patrol proceeded much faster. Although junior brother Lin Emo and junior sister Zhao Qingxue have great talents, they are only in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. It's unacceptable for them to act so recklessly on the sect missions, Zheng Shijiu said. They have made up their minds. There's no need to stop them, Jiang Hao said. It's better to guide them than to stop them. Everyone is responsible for their own actions. Although they are in the Foundation establishment realm, they are not children anymore. Zheng Shijiu nodded. He felt that Jiang Hao was wise. At that time, a man below sneaked into a room, stole a jade bracelet, and smiled smugly. But the next moment, he fainted. Jiang Hao took the jade bracelet. He wiped the bracelet and wrapped it up in a rag. He then placed it back in its spot. He didn't pay attention to the unconscious. When he woke up, he would leave as though nothing had happened. Zheng Shijiu looked at Jiang Hao. Do you know the owner of the bracelet, junior brother Jiang? Jiang Hao shook his head. I don't. Then, Zheng Shijiu found it strange. Is it strange? Jiang Hao looked at him and said with a smile, it's not necessarily a good or a bad thing to intervene sometimes. It just helps to keep my conscience clear. Zheng Shijiu couldn't fully understand Jiang Hao. For a moment, he didn't know whether Jiang Hao wanted to help people, or he was just doing it for the sake of it. But the owner of the bracelet won't know about this. They won't appreciate your help, Zheng Shijiu said. It's not necessary for people to know about it. Not everything has to be acknowledged, Jiang Hao said calmly. They reached the sky. They saw a dark-skinned girl running below. She stumbled and fell, but she didn't care. When she returned to the small hut and saw the bracelet wrapped in a rag, she relaxed. She clutched the bracelet tightly as if she was afraid it would be stolen. Jiang Hao saw this but didn't pay any attention to it. Zheng Shijiu remembered the girl. As a golden core cultivator, the smallest things could determine one's future. On the first day of going their separate ways, Lin Emo and the others returned with some pills. The same happened on the second day. There were none on the third. Jiang Hao didn't mind. Around the middle of August, on the seventh day, Lin Emo, Zhao Qingxue, and Lin Ji walked toward the alchemy area of the Candlelight Pill Pavilion. They had received information that someone had broken the rules not far ahead. They were secretly practicing alchemy in the alchemy area. After a while, they arrived at the area. There was a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator who was refining pills. As they approached, a pleasant fragrance wafted from the pill furnace. The pills were ready. At that moment, the cultivator excitedly carried the pills and headed outside. However, Lin Emo and the others blocked his path. Senior brother, please wait a moment, Lin Emo said. We heard that you used special means to enter the alchemy area. Everyone understood. As long as the pills were ready, no one would investigate the matter further. It wasn't a big deal to use other means to enter the area. Some people did it so that they could have the area to themselves. Junior brother, you should just let things go sometimes. You come here too many times too. Let this slide, alright? Said the person. Isn't this too much? Why are you blaming us when you are the one coming here secretly? Asked Lin Mo. We always have to return empty-handed. Every time you come here, you take something with you. When others are gaining a bit, you still want it for yourself. You should know when to stop, junior brother. But this time, you didn't come back empty-handed, Lin Mo said. The senior at the Foundation Establishment realm looked at Lin Mo and smiled. Junior brother, why are you being so pushy? You've come here so many times. Just let it be this once. Senior brother, I'm just following the rules of the sect. Lin Mo looked at the senior in front of him. I just want to ask if you used any special methods to enter the area. If he returned the pills, the matter would be resolved. However, to Lin Mo's surprise, the senior nodded with a smile. Yes, I did. What would you have me do, junior brother? Lin Mo frowned. Senior brother, do you know that entering without following the normal procedure will result in punishment? Some people chose the punishment rather than return the pills. People were often punished unless they were someone powerful or influential. I remember you, said the late-stage Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. You've been coming here these past few days. Aren't you afraid of offending people with such frequent visits? Offending people? Lin Mo said. I'm a disciple of the Law Enforcement Hall. If you violate the rules and I catch you, am I to blame for that? Law Enforcement Hall? No wonder. The senior's smile turned unfriendly. Have you ever considered that some people have to follow rules and compromise because they have no choice, while others do as they please? What do you mean? Lin Mo asked. Nothing, Just that I admire you for being so bold to the point of arrogance even when you are only at the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Sometimes, acting in such a way might make people feel like they want to kill you. Then, with a swift movement, a long spear shot out. Lin Mo was shocked by the impact. He activated his defensive treasure to block the attack. But the opponent didn't give him time to react. The gap in strength was too great. Bang! The spear effortlessly pierced through the defense treasure and stabbed Lin Mo. He was pinned to the wall. Junior brother, you really don't know anything about timing, do you? The late-stage Foundation establishment realm cultivator sighed. Why did you have to do this now? Chapter 895. As fragile as dust, Lin Mo widened his eyes at the sudden pain. Regret, anger, and fear flashed through his eyes. But more than anything, there was a refusal to accept defeat. How could he die like this? His path had been smoother than others, and his talent far surpassed them. Resources were within his easy reach. He still had a chance to shine bright and gain the admiration of others. Even in the face of death, he should be calmer than others. If he were to die, he would drag his enemy down with him. He was a genius with numerous resources, and his seniors were all watching him. Many thoughts ran through Lin Mo's mind. He spat out blood. His eyes were bloodshot. He gritted his teeth, grabbed the spear lodged in his chest, and pulled it out. Blood sprayed out. His aura began to rise continuously as if it had been accumulating for a long time and was finally breaking through. He advanced to the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Die. Lin Mo, with a ferocious face, infused all his power into one thrust and hurled the spear at his opponent. The intent was to kill. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Zhao Qingxue and Lin Ji were shocked. They couldn't react in time. Lin Ji almost fled. He pulled Zhao Qingxue and Lin Mo and tried to run with them. Facing Lin Mo's attack, the Foundation establishment realm senior was surprised. He crushed the spear easily. In an instant, he appeared in front of Lin Mo. Then, he pushed him down. He pressed Lin Mo's head to the ground. Thought you had some power? He slammed Lin Mo's head down. His head was almost entirely buried in the soil. He treated him as though he was as fragile as dust. It crushed Lin Mo's pride. Lin Ji wanted to help, but he felt like he was of no use. This was the world of cultivation. Just because you were at the Foundation establishment realm didn't mean every opponent you faced was weaker than you. Temporary breakthroughs couldn't give a person enough power and strength to fight back. Zhao Qingxue felt how insignificant she was for the first time. She didn't even have a chance to make a move. At that moment, the Foundation establishment realm senior looked at the three people and smiled. You should thank the sect's rules. Otherwise, you would be dead. A woman walked to them. The things we need are ready. We can leave now. Then, she looked at the three on the ground. Aren't you killing them? No need, said the Foundation establishment realm senior and shook his head. Killing within the sect is troublesome. Besides, there is no need to let a group of inexperienced kids ruin our plans. He squatted down, patted Lin Mo's face, and chuckled. Junior brother, how long do you think you can survive once you leave the sect? With that, he turned and left. Lin Mo and the others had no idea about their plans. They just happened to bump into them here. Shortly after, Jiang Hao and Zheng Shijiu appeared in front of the three kids. Even now, they were still suppressed by the aura. They couldn't even get up. No one was around, so nobody had informed the sect. What happened here? Zheng Shijiu asked. Jiang Hao shook his head. Such incidents were common in the world of cultivation, and the same applied within the sect. The only thing they could do was try to avoid them as much as possible. When Lin Mo and the others mentioned that there were more alchemists here, he thought that something might happen. He just didn't expect things to go south so quickly. They probably encountered some spies, Jiang Hao said. Lin Ji and the others were not children. So, Jiang Hao wouldn't keep an eye on them every day. He didn't expect problems to occur so soon. Lin Mo's behavior wouldn't have caused any problems within the sect, but unfortunately, they had run into these people outside. Well, hopefully, Lin Ji had learned a lesson from this. Do we need to inform the disciples of the law enforcement hall? Zheng Shijiu asked. Yes. Jiang Hao nodded. The disciples from the law enforcement hall took Lin Mo away. Since the other two were not injured, they stayed back and completed the sect's tasks. Later, Liu Xingchen also arrived. He was responsible for investigating the situation. Junior brother Jiang, you seem to run into trouble wherever you go, he said. You jest, senior brother. This time, it wasn't me, said Jiang Hao. Tell me what happened, Liu Xingchen said with interest. Jiang Hao remained calm. It seems the three juniors noticed something unusual and confronted somebody about it. The opponent turned out to be too powerful. It was my negligence, senior brother Liu. Junior brother Jiang, you must be joking. It's not your fault. It's good that you found the problem early. That's good. Jiang Hao nodded and looked at Lin Ji and Zhao Qingxue. They hadn't fully recovered yet. They still didn't understand what the cultivation path and the sect were about. Although Lin Ji was constantly beaten in the sect, even he was unaware of how terrifying the sect could be. As for Zhao Qingxue, she had never seen the real side of the sect at the White Moon Lake. Their status was too high. I believe you told me to find something before. Did you find anything? Jiang Hao asked. It was not easy to find that person. Haven't found the person yet. It seems like the sect is intentionally waiting for something. But you definitely found an important clue, Liu Xingchen said with a smile. Is it someone important? Jiang Hao asked. The Lawless Tower has intervened. We still don't know for sure. Liu Xingchen shook his head. After talking for a while, Liu Xingchen left. He seemed very eager. Jiang Hao looked at Zhao Qingxue and Lin Ji. Let's go back and rest. We'll continue patrolling tomorrow. This time, the merit will be significant, and it will help with your task, Jiang Hao said. Regardless, they had indeed achieved something. They were the first to know about the situation here. Jiang Hao didn't know the details, but it seemed unrelated to the Great Thousand God sect and the Heavenly Saint sect. Perhaps, after some time, Liu Xingchen would inform him of the developments. As for Lin Mo, he wouldn't die. How he wanted to proceed from now on would depend on himself. At the enforcement hall, Lin Mo slowly sat up in the courtyard. His eyes no longer had the confident gleam from before. It seemed like he had suffered an unimaginable blow. He had been humiliated and beaten. He covered his face, and tears streamed down his face. Feeling bad, said a young man beside him. Senior brother, I want to be alone right now, Lin Mo said. Do you feel like a failure? Do you feel embarrassed? The man asked. Lin Mo didn't say anything. The man smiled. It's normal. Everyone is arrogant and reckless when they are young. It's not bad, but you need to understand the consequences that come with your actions. Don't think that you are different just because you are from the law enforcement hall. If you think like that, you won't be worthy of the law enforcement hall. Master has high expectations for you. That's why he asked you to follow junior brother Jiang. That person isn't ordinary. You will learn a lot if you follow him. What did you think when you first saw him? Did you feel that he was a mere inner sect disciple who relied on Bloodwish path to advance? Did you think that was all he was worth? You didn't want to debase yourself by associating with him. Chapter 896. Learn to respect others. Lin Mo frowned. After a moment of silence, he asked, Isn't that how it's supposed to be? Yes. A young man in a blue robe smiled. But one shouldn't judge someone just by appearance. You should know how many traitors and infiltrators he has encountered, yet he emerges unscathed every time. He always manages to achieve great merits along the way. Observe the people who complete tasks with him. Most of them are always grateful and indebted to him. Those who end up dead are usually spies or traitors to the sect. What do you think of that? Isn't that just because his cultivation realm is higher than ordinary fellow disciples? Lin Mo asked. Junior brother Lin, your aspiration for immortality is commendable, but your understanding of the path of cultivation is not enough. The young man laughed. You need to look beyond appearances. He discovers infiltrators and traitors, and at the same time, he makes his fellow companions respect him. His skills, his demeanor, his state of mind. It's all worth learning from. You need to observe, learn, and experience. Only then will you avoid the situation you are currently facing. The young man looked at the silver door, sighed, and then turned to Lin Mo. We were all young once, but we had to learn. If your thinking doesn't change, then your future might be bumpy. You can decide whether you want to go back to patrol with the group or not. It may be embarrassing, but it's also a part of growth. We will investigate the people from the Candlelight Pill Pavilion, but we won't act for now. When you become strong enough, you can take on the task of finding them. Of course, the requirement would be for you to be able to join the law enforcement hall fully. Around late August, Jiang Hao continued patrolling in the outer sect area. This time, Zhao Qingxue cooperated fully. Lin Ji didn't say anything. They hadn't spoken for the past few days, and Jiang Hao didn't rush to ask about what had happened. People needed time to process things and learn from it. Everyone had their own way of coping with things. However, the incident was enough to prompt them to think deeply about it. The first thing to learn was forgiveness, which became more difficult as one ventured further from the sect. Lin Mo and the others wouldn't bother with that. They would kill at the first instant. Jiang Hao wanted Lin Ji to understand that the sect was the safest and that the outside world was far more dangerous. A slight mistake could make them targets, and their fate would be uncertain. 10 days after the incident, Jiang Hao saw that Zhao Qingxue and Lin Ji were gradually recovering. Both of them seemed different from before. Jiang Hao didn't care much about Zhao Qingxue, but Lin Ji was from his branch, and the spirit beast had helped him grow. Xiao Li got along well with him, so Jiang Hao couldn't just ignore him. It was time to make him understand the dangers that lay outside the sect. Senior brother Zheng wasn't ordinary either. They had worked together before, and he knew how to stay safe. Lin Mo returned to the patrol team with his head lowered. He approached and greeted Jiang Hao and Zheng Shijiu. Seniors. Zheng Shijiu was surprised. He nodded. He felt that Lin Mo was different from before. Perhaps he had learned from his actions. Jiang Hao nodded and didn't say much. Let's go. It's time for the patrol. Jiang Hao didn't fly on his sword but walked instead. He walked on a narrow path full of monster dung. It was unpleasant and difficult to walk on. However, Jiang Hao still led them on. Zheng Shijiu was puzzled but followed along. Lin Ji frowned. He was confused. Zhao Qingxue looked at them with disdain. Jiang Hao looked at Lin Ji behind him. Any feelings about this road? It's dirty, Lin Ji said softly. How do you feel walking on it? Jiang Hao looked at him. I feel some disgust and skepticism, Lin Ji said truthfully. Is there anything you want to say? Jiang Hao asked. Lin Ji hesitated for a moment. I don't understand why we have to walk this dirty path. I'm leading you on this path. Do you resent me? No, said Lin Ji. The one cleaning the path is a lazy senior who isn't doing the job well. Do you blame him? The one who is dirtying the path is a powerful senior with a powerful beast. Lin Ji was confused. In the sect, you will find many situations which might frustrate you, but you'll have to learn to deal with them. Do not reveal your emotions on your face. You first need to learn to silently observe your surroundings. You shouldn't reveal how you feel in your words as well, said Jiang Hao. Lin Ji only half understood what he was being told but tried to keep everything in mind. Zheng Shijiu noticed that Jiang Hao was teaching Lin Ji. However, Lin Mo felt conflicted. He wasn't willing to follow such teachings. People are different. You need to find a balance, Jiang Hao said. Each person has different thoughts and feelings. Being compliant and nodding along with everything others say means you aren't being yourself. Later, they arrived at a muddy place where the busy outer sect disciples noticed them. They walked over to greet them. We're here on patrol. We don't mean to trouble you. Please don't worry about us, Jiang Hao said politely to the outer sect disciples, who were quite surprised but left them on their own. Refinement realm? Jiang Hao asked the group. If I tell you that one of them is at the late stage of the primordial spirit realm, would you still feel superior? The group was stunned. Jiang Hao didn't explain further. Learn to treat those you look down upon with respect. It will keep you humble. Lin Ji nodded. But understand the most important thing. Don't hesitate when it's time to take action, Jiang Hao said. He had discussed similar topics with Chu Chuan before but never in such detail. Lin Ji, being less exposed to the outside world, found it challenging to understand everything. Whether these lessons would be useful to him would depend on himself. They continued to patrol. The disciples of the Great Thousand God sect had been here for a while, and it seemed like a conflict within the sect would soon erupt. They needed to avoid it as much as possible. Early the next morning, after finishing the patrol, Jiang Hao felt the stone tablet vibrate. A gathering was in order. It would be held at midnight. It had been a long time since the last meeting. Jiang Hao wasn't sure about the situation outside. It was a good opportunity to check for more information about the southern region. There had been remarkable incidents taking place in the sect recently. He decided to exchange patrol times with someone for the day. Unfortunately, the only available patrol was the one at White Moon Lake. That place always had strong individuals around. Jiang Hao sighed. He had no choice but to agree. Chapter 897, True Dragon's Inheritance. At night, Jiang Hao and his companions sat in a grove. The grove was the resting place for those who were on patrol duties. Everyone kept their distance but were vigilant. A barrier was set up around the area to prevent people from getting in. If you leave, you won't be able to come back here for a while, Jiang Hao said. He laid down a formation in front of everyone. On the surface, it appeared to be an ordinary formation, but other forces were acting as its base. It might not withstand attacks from strong individuals, but it was enough to resist foundation-building cultivators. After mentioning that they would cultivate, Jiang Hao used his power to cover the surroundings with power to prevent people from prying. Zheng Shijiu remained alert, so Jiang Hao didn't need to worry too much. Lin Mo and the others looked at Jiang Hao. They still couldn't accept him as a leader wholeheartedly. Lin Ji listened to everything Jiang Hao said, but he couldn't make Lin Mo and Zhao Qingxue follow him. This is for you. Lin Mo handed over some spirit herbs he had obtained during the patrol to Lin Ji. I don't need this much, Lin Ji said. In front of them, he was still the weakest. Take it. You need it more than we do, Zhao Qingxue said. After hesitating, she said, don't think too much about it. After all, we are friends from the same village. We don't know what will happen in the future, but for now, I hope you can live a better life. Lin Ji lowered his head and accepted the things. We are already at the foundation building realm, and we might be able to reach the golden core realm soon. We can live for hundreds of years. You, at the lifeblood refinement realm, won't last much longer. Lin Mo gave him more things. He looked somewhat guilty. If it weren't for him, they wouldn't have been in danger in the first place. They wouldn't have had to face humiliation. He was a genius who should have led people to success, not to humiliation. So, Lin Mo felt guilty. He didn't want to cause trouble for others, especially for those who were in a lower cultivation realm than him. It made him feel uneasy. Lin Ji accepted the things and silently kept note of them. What should we do next? Zhao Qingxue asked. We should follow senior brother Jiang for now, Lin Mo said. He wanted to see why people admired senior brother Jiang so much. Zhao Qingxue had no particular opinion of him. She thought he was just an ordinary sect disciple with a slightly higher cultivation realm than them. Compared to some other seniors, he didn't seem to differ much. The ordinary disciples were not as good as the ordinary inner sect disciples from the White Moon Lake. There was a difference in status and position. After all, the White Moon Lake was governed by the acting sect master herself. At midnight, Jiang Hao entered the stone tablet. He reviewed everything he had learned from the last gathering and found nothing special. He wanted to see if the others had found anything else, especially about the dragon's nest and the situation in the south. However, Gui was not in the south, so there might be less information from there. Jiang Hao entered the public space and found that Zhong was also there. Others were surprised, but Jiang Hao remained indifferent. Everyone knew that Zhong was going through the inner demon's trial to become an immortal. It seemed she had succeeded. At that moment, her aura was restrained. It didn't fluctuate like before. Senior Dan Yuan was already there. They sat cross-legged and waited for the gathering to begin. "Congratulations, friend Zhong," Senior Dan Yuan said. Zhong nodded. "It's all thanks to you, Senior." Dan Yuan didn't say much. "Do any of you have any cultivation issues?" Everyone shook their heads. They were either waiting for opportunities or had just advanced. They didn't have any problems with their cultivation. Dan Yuan nodded. "Do you have any information regarding Old Man Corpse C? He might be in the south," Xing said. Gui was speechless. She was still thinking of returning to the south. "South?" Dan Yuan nodded. "I heard that something happened overseas, and the Abyssal Sea is flowing backward." Liu nodded. "It is said to be related to the Dragon Clan, but from the 12 Heavenly Kings' perspective, it seems like an opportunity to become an immortal has appeared. If you have more information, please tell me," Dan Yuan said. Apart from that, Senior Dan Yuan didn't say much else. Jiang Hao was surprised by Xing's words. How does he know that Old Man Corpse C was in the south? Is he that well informed, or did he leave the east? Old Man Corpse C didn't seem dangerous, and his presence in the south wasn't a very big concern. The real concern was the end of all things. They were always after terrifying objects and had almost succeeded in unearthing multiple dangerous things. It made people exhausted. After that, the trading began. Zhong said, "The person you wanted me to protect has been secured. He is now within the Academy's range. Nothing should go wrong." Jiang Hao nodded and then looked at Gui. "I have already sent the thing out. Zhong should receive it in the next few days," Gui said. That was the ancient and modern book. Keeping the book to herself would undoubtedly invite more trouble. It was safer to let it go. "Did you visit the grave?" Zhong asked Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao nodded. "What do you need in exchange?" Zhong asked. The reward wasn't discussed before because it was uncertain whether she would succeed. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Hao decided to postpone the reward for a while. The task had been easy, so the reward couldn't be that big either. Zhong didn't have any objections to it. Xing and Jiang Hao's task required Gui, so it couldn't be completed right away. That left only the trade between Liu and Gui. They looked at Gui. They wanted to know what she had gained from her trip to the dragon's nest. "I have already obtained the book," said Gui and looked at Liu. "I sent it out through a special channel, and I haven't read its contents. Are there dragons beneath the dragon's nest?" Liu asked with curiosity. She got her reward too. The information she received about the Heavenly Spirit tribe was very detailed. The dragon's nest is not a place for humans to go. Gui sighed. "I thought that with enough luck, it would be much safer to enter. However, I was wrong. After entering, the residual true dragon's aura from the Dragon Clan did not welcome us. Finding the book was relatively easy, but problems arose when we tried to enter the center of the dragon's nest. Our people accidentally triggered the Dragon Clan's inheritance, and they were absorbed by it. The Dragon Clan didn't want the inheritance to fall into the hands of non-dragons, so the remaining power of the true dragon began to attack us. Although I found some things inside, it was still very dangerous." "Where is the dragon's nest?" Zhong asked. She had recently encountered the phantom of the Dragon Clan as well. "At the Gentian Cliff," Liu said. Zhong was surprised. There was a possibility that Gui was among one of the people who received the blazing luck. She didn't think much about it and listened quietly. As for the location of the dragon's nest, she wasn't interested in it. That place didn't welcome her. "What did you discover?" Xing curiously asked Gui. "I found something," Gui said. "I found a page from the Sage's pages. It was possibly from a very long time ago. It had a record of an extremely dangerous creature in the world." Chapter 898. The true dragon inheritance can be sold to the most dangerous creature in the world. What could be deadlier than the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl and the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl? Both those pearls are extremely terrifying. The Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl was the most dangerous, while the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl could devour everything. These two items have already made the people at the gathering uneasy. It was unthinkable that another dangerous thing or creature was yet to appear. Once the news spread, it would be chaos. By then, the end of all things would give everything to find it. It was easy to unseal but difficult to seal it back. The end of all things only required one thing to destroy everything, while the rest of the world would spend time finding powerful forces to fill the gap. Jiang Hao was no exception. According to Hong Yuye, ominous things seemed to find him. Perhaps others thought that they still had time, but Jiang Hao didn't want another dangerous pearl. However, if the information had reached the gathering, it meant it might have reached somewhere else too. What kind of extreme thing are we talking about? Xing asked curiously. Gui thought for a moment. It's called the Heavenly Extreme Dream Pearl. Jiang Hao was speechless. This was the second time he had heard this name. The ancient and modern book had mentioned it. The Heavenly Extreme Dream Pearl? Everyone was puzzled. No one had heard of it. Everyone looked at Dan Yuan. They hoped he would give them some information about it. Dan Yuan looked at everyone and smiled. The appearance of the Heavenly Extreme Dream Pearl is close to that of the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl, but it was sealed before it was born. So, very few people know about it, and there is not much information about it. Is there no record of its information in the sage's pages? Zhong asked Gui. No. Gui shook her head. In the beginning, the sage's pages recorded such details. But after a while, the contents disappeared. Only some records are left, said Xing. At that point, Gui looked at Jiang Hao. Others also looked at him. Why are you looking at me? What do you want me to do? How would I know? Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. With the weakest cultivation realm here, how could he possibly know about this thing? Before, it was because the thing was in the Heavenly Note sect, so he could find out. When Jiang Hao didn't say anything, they changed the topic of conversation. But they couldn't forget the Heavenly Extreme Dream Pearl. After going back, he would investigate it. I wanted to ask you all. Who wants the true dragon's inheritance? Gui asked. Everyone was surprised. The true dragon's inheritance might be sellable. Are there many? Xing asked. Just one, Gui said. Why? Zhong was puzzled. My friend said that these inheritances are of no use to her, so there's no need to waste them. It's better to give them to someone with luck, said Gui. It surprised Jiang Hao, too. He was thinking about whether to take it and give it to Xiao Li. But Xiao Li doesn't need any inheritance at all. Even if he did give it to her, she wouldn't learn it. Then, should I give it to Cheng Chou? Unfortunately, Cheng Chou wasn't suitable for something that big. At present, he could only take one step at a time. When he reaches the Golden Core realm, he may be able to bear the inheritance. Perhaps with the blessing of the inheritance, he could even make it to the primordial spirit realm. Jiang Hao would help in any way he could. Cheng Chou had helped Jiang Hao a lot. Xiao Li and Cheng Chou were also close. Since he always went along with her to her village, Xiao Li respected and admired Cheng Chou. She felt very grateful. But before he could say anything, Zhong said, What do you need, Gui? The Heavenly Spirit Tribe's heavenly bestowed cultivation technique is something I don't have, said Gui. Just that? Zhong asked. Gui nodded. At that moment, Zhong understood why she needed that. It was because of the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. The Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment was only half a gift. Only one true dragon's inheritance wasn't enough. The others did not speak. In fact, they all wanted the true dragon's inheritance. Whether they use it themselves or not, it will always be useful to have it, especially for Liu. There had been events related to dragons overseas, and having a true dragon's inheritance might be a good thing. The Fallen Immortal clan has been active in the south recently. They might be looking for someone, Xing suddenly said. Speaking of which, many people have gone to the south. There is a lamp-carrying disciple from the Great Thousand God sect, Liu said. The lamp-carrying disciple? Gui was surprised. A person carrying a lantern in broad daylight? Why is he so famous? That's because he is both the true body and an avatar. The avatar waits in the void and comes out when the body dies. He has as many lives as he might have avatars. It is said that there was a problem with the cultivation of the Great Thousand Spirit, which unexpectedly made him successful. He's difficult to kill, but he needs a lantern to illuminate his path. Otherwise, he will be dragged into an endless abyss, said Liu. So many people suspect the origin of the Great Thousand spiritual law. What kind of accident can drag someone into an endless abyss? Doesn't he have any other weaknesses? Gui asked. There are almost no weaknesses in the technique. The lantern wasn't a tangible object, so it couldn't be destroyed. There are no other weaknesses. But he actually wants to break free from this undying state because the true body cannot ascend anymore, and his lifespan cannot be extended, Liu said. There are also some rumors in the East about him. His trip to the south may be related to the divine soul of the Holy Master, said Xing. People from the Heavenly Saint clan and the Heavenly Spirit tribe are on the move lately. It may be because the fallen immortal clan's immortal seed is about to bloom. At this, everyone was surprised. Jiang Hao didn't expect that the immortal seed would bring so many changes. Will the Heavenly Spirit tribe also become powerful? Gui asked. She was about to go there. Jiang Hao was quite helpless. He had offended the Holy Master, and that entity was about to become even more powerful. It was even more troublesome. Fortunately, the person who offended the Holy Master was smiling San Sheng. Is it related to something of the Heavenly Spirit tribe? Liu suddenly asked. Do you have any news, Liu? Star asked. Yes, but the information is on a member of the Great Thousand God sect. I can vaguely recognize the person, but I don't have a way to verify it, said Liu. Jiang Hao was surprised. Does he cultivate the Great Thousand spiritual technique? Yes. Liu nodded. I have a way to confirm whether the person is a member of the Great Thousand God sect, Jiang Hao said calmly. Everyone was surprised. Liu was astonished. Members of the Great Thousand God sect are not easy to find. Otherwise, how would they be able to hide everywhere and carry out their tasks without detection? What do you need in exchange, Jing? Liu asked. They didn't need to verify the information because Jing had never been wrong. So, he might really know how to distinguish members of the Great Thousand God sect. I'll tell you later. Jiang Hao currently had nothing he needed. There was no need to rush. The main focus was to get stronger. He needed to find an opportunity to find Feng Hua. Once Feng Hua was found, he might be able to find the person behind the stone tablet. At that time, Hong Yuye would ask him to do things for him. He would then require a lot of help. Chapter 899. What big plan does Jing have? Overseas, Mr. Dao opened his eyes. He got up and walked to the window. He looked at the moon bright in the sky. He went outside, where Zhu Shun and Tang Yue were on guard. Mr. Dao. Zhu Shun was surprised. Are there people from the Great Thousand God sect nearby? Mr. Dao asked. Yes, it's someone who needs to be dealt with soon. He doesn't understand the rules and is causing some trouble, Zhu Shun said. Bring him here, Mr. Dao said calmly. In the moonlight, he looked scholarly. Mr. Dao, you don't need to come personally for such matters. I can handle it, Tang Yue said. Mr. Dao smiled. It's not what you think. It's for an important purpose. A moment later, a middle-aged man was brought in. He looked anxious. Senior, have I offended you in some way? What is your mission? Mr. Dao suddenly asked. I don't understand what you're saying, Senior. The middle-aged man pretended to be confused. Very well, Mr. Dao said. I heard that you harmed our people. No. It's definitely a misunderstanding. That whole family is dead and still they slander me. They deserved to die, said the middle-aged man. Mr. Dao looked at him without speaking but secretly used a technique. Instantly, the man's spirit fluctuated, and he sensed the spiritual trace of the Great Thousand God sect. He didn't know what was happening. He looked at Mr. Dao in fear. Zhu Shun walked to Mr. Tao's side. It's been taken care of. Mr. Dao nodded. I remember we have quite a talented member of the Great Thousand God sect in our building. Yes, but we haven't been able to catch him, Jushin said. Go back and prepare. Mark the most likely targets and invite them one by one for tea, Mr. Dao said calmly. Jushin didn't quite understand. Tang Yue asked, Mr. Dao, are you going to take action? Are you sure? Mr. Dao looked at Tang Yue and smiled. Tang Yue was speechless. Mr. Dao did not expect that it would be this useful. Even he, as the master of the Heavenly Tower, couldn't bear it. He needed to keep it a secret. The revival of the Heavenly Spirit tribe was not a good thing. Since the Bright Moon sect wanted to avoid it, he naturally had to help. The situation overseas was already complicated enough. If the Heavenly Spirit tribe became active again, it would be troublesome. When are we going to the Dragon's Nest? Tang Yue asked. The West is so dangerous. It was only logical to leave. But no matter how dangerous it was, it would pass. They could still go there. There's no need to go there anymore, Mr. Dao said. Why? Tang Yue looked puzzled. You'll know in a while. Mr. Dao did not explain. Tang Yue rolled her eyes. Early the next morning in the West, Baizhu asked, Are you really not coming with us? The young woman in front of her looked different. A large bird was hovering around her. I want to walk my own path, Chu Jie smiled and said. I want to prepare for my future. Baizhu guessed that Chu Jie was preparing to ascend to immortality. Otherwise, what realm would she need to lay the foundation for? Some people, after building the foundation, were already preparing for the ascent to immortality, while she was still refining her cultivation. These are for you. After thinking for a moment, Chu Jie asked, Are you really only 18 years old? Baizhu was speechless. A piece of dragon scale and a dragon marrow were placed in her hands. The true dragon's inheritance was given to her. Baizhu was given all the good things Chu Jie had gotten her hands on. Baizhu felt helpless. In the past, she was the one giving gifts to others. She was the wealthiest princess in the south, after all. Who could compare to her wealth? It was touching that she was receiving gifts from someone else. What moved her was that Chu Jie didn't even think twice before giving something like this away. Then, I'll be going. Chu Jie waved at her with a smile. Baizhu felt strange. They might never meet again. Wait. Baizhu stopped her. She held Chu Jie's hand. I want to give you something too. Huh? Chu Jie shook her head. I don't need anything. You do. Believe me, Baizhu said seriously. What? Chu Jie didn't know what she might need. Fortune, cultivation opportunities, magic tools, pills, cultivation techniques, spirit stones. She didn't lack any of these. Even if she didn't have them now, she could earn them easily. There was nothing she lacked. Whether it was the true dragon's inheritance or a common cultivation technique, they were no different to her. Even if she cultivated the most ordinary technique, she could still cross the threshold between mortal and immortal. Do you have this? Baizhu took out a pile of coarse grains and a pile of cured meat. If you go to some places, these things are the most scarce. The others are not as good as these. Moreover, some places experience drought and famine. Do you have a way to feed yourself? Take these. It's not enough for your journey, but it'll be useful. Maybe you'll need to learn a way to plant crops to feed yourself. Here are cultivation methods and books on dealing with various situations. Take them all. Chu Jie nodded and accepted them. She indeed didn't have these things. And I'm giving you this. Baizhu held out a jade pendant. If you encounter any difficulties in the south, take this jade pendant and find some major businesses there. Let me tell you a secret. I might just happen to run them. Even if I don't run them, I have a hand in their establishment. So, they'll help you wholeheartedly when they see this jade pendant. You must accept it. You might not need it now, but you never know what the future holds. Chu Jie hesitated for a moment, then nodded and accepted the jade pendant. After that, she bid farewell to Baizhu and Qiao Yi. Auntie Qiao, goodbye. Sister Baizhu, goodbye. Then her figure disappeared into the distance like a beam of light. Qiao Yi and Baizhu both felt that they might never meet again. When we see her again, she may have already become an immortal, Baizhu said with emotion. The Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment was really terrifying. Baizhu took a deep breath. Let's go, Auntie Qiao. Let's return to the south. It seems like there's a problem with the Heavenly Spirit tribe lately. Baizhu let out a heavy sigh. For some reason, these past few years had felt full of catastrophes. When had it started? It must have been when Jing came to the south. He stirred up everything there. She didn't know what his purpose was. When the Shenyuan clan rose, the Saint Bandits had appeared, and the heart of the ancestral dragon had disappeared. It was all because Jing wanted something from the Abyssal Sea. With so many things happening, she didn't know if he was behind it all. When Baizhu was just about to use a special channel to hand over the items to Zhong, she received a note. On it was Zhong's recent discovery. Somebody informed me that the sage's pages are in the south now. Baizhu was stunned. Was Jing trying to lure someone to the south? Chapter 900. Chaos. After the gathering, Jiang Hao began to write down everything. There were quite a few gains from this gathering. It seemed that Xing owed him a huge favor, and Zhong owed him a smaller one. Liu also owed him something. Old Man Corpse Sea was apparently in the south. There was a possibility that Xing would leave the east too. The thing that needed attention was that the Abyssal Sea had flowed backward. It was probably related to the Dragon Clan or the 12 Heavenly Kings. The blossoming of the immortal seed would affect the Heavenly Spirit tribe and the Heavenly Saint sect, but the details were uncertain. The people of the gathering knew about the Heavenly Extreme Dream Pearl. The Grand Thousand spiritual technique was challenging to destroy. The lantern might be the weakness of that blindfolded person. He had taught Liu a small spell to identify the members of the Great Thousand God sect. He didn't know if it might trigger a series of reactions. He was not afraid of the information spreading. He had only informed Liu about it, so there was no problem. In the early morning, Jiang Hao put away the notebook and prepared to go on a patrol. He was patrolling the White Moon Lake. He was unsure if there would be any danger there. According to what Xing said, those from the fallen immortal clan were approaching the south, and their presence was already known in the Heavenly Note sect. The danger could arrive at any moment. Liu had also mentioned some information about Kai Tian last night. The opponent was becoming more and more extraordinary, and his status and cultivation were rapidly improving. He had gained the trust of Heavenly King Taomu. He had become a close confidant of the king. In Heavenly King Taomu's territory, Kai Tian had become stronger. It's really like rising with the wind in a day, soaring 9,000 miles. Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh. Kai Tian was getting the right opportunities. I hope it will be helpful to me in the future. Jiang Hao didn't care whether the other party was outstanding or not as long as they could help him a little. He just hoped Kai Tian didn't forget his promise. There was no need to go deal with him presently. Jiang Hao led the people to patrol the White Moon Lake. As soon as they arrived at the lake, Zhao Qingxue became excited. She led everyone and explained to them which areas were safe and which were not. Jiang Hao just let her take the lead. This way, in case they encounter people from the White Moon Lake, Zhao Qingxue would handle them. She was happy to do so. Jiang Hao also breathed a sigh of relief when the first day of patrolling went well. Zhao Qingxue and the others felt that patrolling these areas was actually safe. Jiang Hao didn't say anything. However, the subsequent patrol surprised him. In the outer sect area, he found people from the Heavenly Saint sect. In early September, he sensed the presence of a Saint Bandit among the crowd. Around mid-September, he discovered people from the fallen immortal clan. At the end of September, there were more people from the Grand Thousand God sect. The sheer number of these spies made Jiang Hao's scalp numb. These people were all very powerful, and they had infiltrated the sect. Danger was everywhere. Jiang Hao tried to identify these people. Their goals were different. The Heavenly Saint sect and the Grand Thousand God sect were after the divine soul of the Holy Master. Surprisingly, the fallen immortal clan was looking for veins in the Heavenly Note sect to make the blossoming of the immortal seeds more successful. As for the Saint Bandits, they just wanted to steal opportunities. The only thing uncertain was what the Heavenly Note sect wanted out of this. Jiang Hao didn't want to get involved. He spent some time and finally found the most likely area without much conflict. They were patrolling the mining area. This time, it seemed that no one was targeting the mining area. The day before, Jiang Hao planned to change places when something unexpected happened. People from the Heavenly Gate sect arrived with Shangguan Qingsu. She found out that Smiling San Sheng had come to the Heavenly Note sect. Their target was the mines. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Hao chose to go to the edge of the sect to patrol. Lin Mo and others felt puzzled. Jiang Hao had frequently changed patrol locations, but they couldn't understand what he was doing. Zheng Shijiu also felt confused. Around late October, Jiang Hao asked Xiao Li to stay in the Spirit Herb Garden. He informed Lin Ji and others that they needed to patrol with him and that they would have no free time. Senior brother Jiang, when did the sect cancel free time? Zhao Qingxue asked. Jiang Hao calmly said, if you want to leave, you are free to do so. Zhao Qingxue frowned. In the end, she didn't say anything. Lin Mo was also curious why their movements were being limited. At night, they even had to travel in pairs as though danger would appear in any corner. They lived like that for half a month. Around mid-November, Jiang Hao looked at the sky. Now, we are taking an entirely new path. Remember this path. To return, you need to follow this path. The four people felt puzzled. Jiang Hao felt that a storm was approaching. The sect became busy. Some seniors from the Lawless Tower also returned. Liu Xingchen also arrived to talk to him. He said that the sect seemed to be preparing for something. Anything could happen. This patrol was very slow. Jiang Hao left something behind secretly every time he passed a place. When they almost finished patrolling the last route, Lin Mo finally said, Senior brother Jiang, the previous patrol route was all right, but now, we're almost walking on forest trails. It doesn't look like a patrolling area at all. Yeah, do you think the sect mission is a joke, senior brother? Zhao Qingxue also asked. Jiang Hao didn't pay attention to them but looked up. He was looking at the area near the mines. Zheng Shijiu and the others were puzzled and followed his gaze. Then, boom! Bright light blossomed in the sky. A powerful force erupted and swept in all directions. It's an enemy attack, Jiang Hao said calmly. Zheng Shijiu and others were shocked. The powerful force fluctuation came like a gust of wind. However, before they could ask what was going on, another equally powerful force erupted from another direction. Boom! Something rumbled in the direction of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Then, mist rose, and the Saint Bandits appeared. The rumbling continued, and the earth trembled. The sudden change frightened Zheng Shijiu and the others. It was too sudden. This is not good. We need to check it out, shouted Lin Mo. Then, they went inside. Zhao Qingxue followed. Jiang Hao looked at them. It was a good thing the sect had such people who wanted to fight for them. Unfortunately, they were too weak, and they didn't know how powerful the person attacking the sect really was. The people from the sect also saw them. At that time, they just wanted to protect themselves. Many demonic beasts rushed over right at that moment. They appeared out of nowhere. Can the sect really handle this? Jiang Hao was shocked. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.